You can't get away from math equations. A trained eye will see them everywhere, especially if they watch Mythbusters. In this particular episode, they needed a stoichiometric ratio of 7% ethanol vapor to properly ignite a shed. I believe this was in the context of the hazards of a home distillery. Stoichiometry is just the math of ratios needed for a chemical reaction. This means if you have too much fuel and not enough air, you won't get a proper combustion. Here's the complication. They need 7% ethanol vapor, and ethanol is just drinking alcohol. But their ethanol sensor was not giving consistent results, so instead they had to use the concentration of oxygen to determine the concentration of ethanol vapor in the air. How do you do that? Pause the video if you want to figure it out for yourself. Otherwise, I'll show what I got in 3, 2, 1. There's a few steps here and a trick to make it easier. Oxygen is about 21% in the atmosphere. And one trick is we don't need to know the concentration of nitrogen, argon, or anything else in the atmosphere because we're only measuring oxygen. So take our 21% oxygen, take 1 minus that to get you the other stuff. Next page. Here's another trick. Pretend your gases are liquids so that you can have greater than 100%, because then we'll be dealing with volume and not percentage. We want 7% ethanol, so that's ethanol divided by the total will give you 0.07. The total comprises your oxygen, everything else, which is 1 minus oxygen, plus the ethanol concentration. And if we pretend that we're dealing with liquids in a flask, then we can have greater than 100%. This plus this equals 1, so we end up with E over 1 plus E equals 0.07. Next page. Solve for E, or ethanol, and that gives you the quantity of ethanol you will need in the mix. Now let's find our total volume. Total volume will equal oxygen plus everything else. That combined will equal 1. Then we add that to the volume of ethanol. And again, I'm pretending that we're dealing with volumes of liquids in a flask so we can have greater than 100%. Notice that when you have a flask with different liquids in it and their combined volumes equal 1, when you add ethanol, you're going to be diluting out everything else and end up with a volume greater than 1. Next page. The volume of oxygen divided by the total volume times 100 will give you the percentage of oxygen. This equals 19.5%. So when the oxygen concentration drops from 21% down to 19.5%, that will mean that we have 7% ethanol vapor. This was also the result given on Mythbusters. This shows the caliber of the engineers or chemists that work with them, because this was not an easy problem to solve, and they had to solve it on site during the show.